In Paraguay, security forces deployed to ensure law and order during Sunday's general election day. Bolivia strengthened its cooperation agenda with Brazil as President Luis Arce reiterates the path of economic growth. And in Sudan, the conflict between the army and the rapid support forces entered its third week. According to the health ministry, the fighting has killed at least 512 people and wounded over 4,200. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the Telesur studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Paraguay, security forces deployed to ensure law and order during the general elections to be held on Sunday. Since midday this Saturday, the police mobilization is part of a security operation to guarantee the good performance of these April 30th elections throughout the national territory. A statement from the National Police Command ordered the deployment of security forces. The document provides for the strict enforcement of the restrictions established by law during the voting day, which will be enforced from 7 p.m. local time this Saturday, especially the prohibition of the sale of alcoholic beverages. Some 4.8 million voters are called to vote in these general elections to elect the president, vice president, 45 senators, 80 deputies, 17 governors, and 17 departmental councils. Argentina commemorates this April 29th the 46th anniversary of the first round of the mothers of Plaza de Mayo to claim for the alive return of their children disappeared during the last civic military dictatorship. Several artistic activities, open talks, and the reopening of the emblematic white scarf tent will take place as part of the commemorative events. The activities will take place as of 6:30 p.m. local time at the art school located at Despacio Memoria y Derechos Humanos on 8151 Libertador Avenue. The day will also include a tribute to the late Hebe de Bonafini, the historical president of the Mothers of Plaza de Mayo Association and worldwide symbol of the struggle for human rights. In this context, Argentina's Minister of Defense, Jorge Tayana, ordered the removal of retired General Rodrigo Zuluaga from his position as President of the Cavalry Retirees Commission. The decision came after Zuluaga vindicated on April 25th the ex-members of the Cavalry Army who are being held for having collaborated with the acts of repression carried out during the dictatorship in the country. In Tayana's opinion, these declarations are contrary to all democratic principles of the rule of law and show Zuluaga's support for state terrorism. The Minister of Defense stated that after 40 years of democracy, it is unacceptable this type of statements that threaten democracy and the policies of memory, truth, and justice. Bolivia strengthens its cooperation agenda with Brazil as President Luis Arce reiterates the path of economic growth. The Bolivian Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Freddy Mamani, and the Secretary General of Itamaraty in Brazil, Laura do Rocha, met on Friday in Brasilia to review the main topics of bilateral agenda. The meeting addressed issues related to trade, fiscal integration and border cooperation, the energy sector, the fight against transnational crimes, and defense. The parties also review issues related to the multilateral agenda, highlighting the prospect for cooperation in South America and the community of Latin American and Caribbean states. Bolivian President Luis Arce, in the honor session of the Yapacani Municipal Council for its 65th anniversary, reiterated that in spite of the adverse international context, the reconstruction of his country's economy will continue to advance. In Brazil, rescuers found the body of a 60-year-old woman in the early hours after an apartment building collapsed in the northeastern Brazilian city of Olinda, killing 6 people. In addition to the 6 deaths, the collapsed structure left 5 people injured, including 2 women whose condition is still serious. Initially, authorities reported that the accident had left 2 dead, a man and a child, but on Friday afternoon, the firefighters located the body of a 50-year-old woman and at nightfall, a 32-year-old woman and her 16-year-old daughter. The collapse occurred Thursday night in the Leme building, a 3-story building in the Jardim Atlântico neighborhood. The building, which ran a risk of collapse, had an eviction order dated 2000 for its residents. Around 100 firefighters and other first responders took part in the rescue operation. In recent years, Brazil has seen an increasing number of applications in the food sector, which has raised concerns about how this affects workers' rights. Our correspondent Brian Meir brings us more on this topic.
A recent study by IPEA shows that there are over 370,000 app delivery drivers in Brazil. Bicyclists working for platforms like iFood represent a growing group within this sector, and riders and labor activists alike are complaining that they don't seem to have any labor rights at all.
iFood didn't support me at all after my accident. I needed 7 stitches on my head and couldn't work for 15 days. They asked me to send them photos. They didn't talk to me anymore. I had to cover the cost of the medicine, repairs to my bike, and 2 weeks without income.
Brazil's 44-hour workweek was destroyed by the labor reforms enacted after the 2016 coup against Dilma Rousseff. Now, delivery cyclists complain that even working up to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, the maximum allowed by iFood, they often fail to earn minimum wage.
Many of workers today are working in slave-like conditions without any labor rights. So we need to urgently revoke the labor law reforms because we need a protective framework and we need to regulate these apps and force these platforms to start guaranteeing the workers' human rights.
Brian Meir, TeleSUR, Recife.
Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you should be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the south. On Saturday, Pope Francis thanked Hungarians for welcoming Ukrainian refugees and urged them to help anyone in need. On the second day of a visit to Hungary, Francis met refugees and poor people at St. Elizabeth Church, named for a Hungarian princess who renounced her wealth to dedicate herself to the poor as a follower of the Pope's namesake, St. Francis of Assisi. The refugees included some who had fled to Hungary from neighboring Ukraine, seeking a safety from the conflict. Speaking in the white brick St. Elizabeth Church in Budapest, Francis recalled that the gospel instructs Christians to show love and compassion to all, especially those experiencing poverty and pain, and even those who are not believers.
Thank you to you for having welcomed not only with generosity, but also with enthusiasm so many refugees from Ukraine. I was moved as I listened to the testimony of Oleg and his family, your journey to the future, a different future far from the horrors of war. The love that Jesus gives us and commands us to practice can help to uproot the evils of indifference and selfishness from society, from our cities, and the places where we live. Indifference is a plague, the evil of selfishness. It rekindles hope for a new, more just and fraternal world where all can feel at home.
In Russia, Sevastopol governor said a drone attack was the cause for the huge fire that broke out on Saturday at a fuel depot in the city's port. The city governor Mikhail Razvozhayev said on Telegram that a fuel reserve was on fire in the Kazakhstan Bay and that according to preliminary information it was caused by a drone strike. The governor said the fire size was around 1,000 square meters and published images of huge clouds of smoke rising into the air. Razvozhayev called on Crimeans to remain calm and in a later post said nobody was hurt. He also said authorities had the situation under control and there was no threat to civilian infrastructure. Earlier this week, Russia said it had repelled a drone attack on the port. Sevastopol is home to Russia's Black Sea Fleet and has been hit by a series of drone attacks since the Kremlin launched its special operation in Ukraine last year. The governments of Iran and Iraq agreed to strengthen their cooperation in the economic and security fields during a visit to Tehran by Iraqi President Abdelatif Rashid. In a joint press conference, the President of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi, described the relations with Baghdad as strategic and underlined that although the ties between the two countries are good, they agreed to work to expand and strengthen their relations in accordance with their common interests in the fields of politics, economy, and culture, agreement which he said will benefit the region. Rashid, on the other hand, underlined the importance of the ties between the two countries based on the conviction of the peoples of the two countries and their desire to cooperate in various fields. Iran has great political influence in Iraq by backing important Iraqi Shiite militias. It also has great economic weight as it supplies the neighboring country with electricity and gas despite being under U.S. sanctions since 2018. Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi slammed on Saturday the United States' presence in the Middle East as he hosted his Iraqi counterpart during wide-ranging talks.
The relationship with Iraq and the countries of the region is based on our common interest. But the Americans are thinking of their own interest, and they're looking for their own interest, not the interest of the Iranian people and the countries of the region.
At least 2 people lost their lives in the Philippines after a collision on Friday between 2 ships off the island of Corregidor. According to the Philippine Coast Guard, the incident involved the Sierra Leone flagship MV Hong Hai 189 and the Marshall Islands flag tanker MV Petit Souet. The 2 deceased were part of the 20 people on board the Sierra Leone ship. 3 of them are still missing and 15 were rescued. Meanwhile, the 21 crew members of the tanker were rescued safe and sound. According to the authorities, search and rescue operations continue in the hope of finding those missing. TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461 and enjoy Latin American alternative broadcasts. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Sudan, warplanes on bombing raids through heavy anti-aircraft fire over Khartoum on Thursday as fierce fighting between the Sudanese army and paramilitaries enter a 3rd week, violating a renewed truce. More than 500 people have been killed since battles erupted on April 15 between the forces of Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his number 2 Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, who commands the paramilitaries' rapid support forces. Both factions' leaders have agreed to multiple truces, but none has effectively taken hold, as the number of dead civilians continues to rise and chaos and lawlessness grip Khartoum, a city of 5 million people where many have been cloistered in their homes, lacking food, water and electricity. Tens of thousands of people have been internally uprooted within Sudan or embarked on arduous trips to neighboring Chad, Egypt, South Sudan and Ethiopia to flee the battles. Saudi Arabian soldiers welcomed Iranian evacuees from Sudan as they stood above a ferry which transported some 1,900 people across the Red Sea from Port Sudan to the Saudi King Faisal Navy base in Jeddah. Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed to end a 7-year diplomatic rupture on March 10th, and 4 Iranian diplomats were on hand when the ship arrived in Jeddah.
Kingdom of Saudi for full cooperation and their efforts and their cooperation to transfer Iranian from the nationality from the Port Sudan to Jeddah port. And thank you very much for all their efforts and their cooperation. That is a symbol of the consular cooperation between 2 countries and also, humanitarian cooperation between 2 countries.
Honestly, never thought we would be coming to Saudi when we're going to be evacuating from there because of our nationality. But, thankfully, they really helped us out. They put their differences aside, they worked together, and they saved lives, basically.
Hundreds gathered in Mali's capital, Bamako, to call for the UN peacekeeping mission to leave. The protesters, many waving Russian flags, said the UN peacekeepers' decade-long presence is no longer required. The demonstration comes at a time when the Malian army has suffered one of the largest attacks by armed groups in central Mali, and when MINUSMA human rights reports frequently accuse the Malian army of human rights violations. The regime-supported anti-United Nations tensions seem set up to continue to rise with presidential elections set for next year, which some might not want to be analyzed too carefully by neutral observers or peacekeepers. Mali, ruled by a military junta since the first coup in 2020, is battling armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State organization with the help of Russian paramilitary forces. More than 300 gold medals were awarded in 33 disciplines and dozens of specialties at the 5th edition of the ALBA Games in Venezuela. These are not only games of competitions, but they are games also of friendship and brotherhood among the peoples of the Caribbean and Latin America.
The ALBA Games conclude with track and field, the king of sports because of the difficulty of its competitions. It is also the oldest event and is considered to be the origin of this time of games and of the modern sports.
What I liked the most was the joy of the audience in the competition. It was a very hot atmosphere, as we Cubans liked, something that forces you to improve, and the Venezuelan athletes are very high-level competitors. They showed his quality and sporting spirit. It was an excellent competition, a great rival.
Although there are no points for the Olympics, they are used for training, to get in touch with other athletes and for inspiration.
I participated in the ALBA Games in 2011. I was invited and now I'm here wearing the colors of Venezuela with more experience and knowledge of the event. It's never too much to have such a competition and have it in your record and experience.
We are very grateful for the opportunity to be part of the ALBA Games here. It gives our athletes another opportunity to compete at a higher level than at home. They are competing against athletes from different countries, and it will be the first time that some of them are competing against such athletes. So it is always a help for them in their development and in their career as athletes.
The participation of Russia as a guest country is a milestone in the history of the ALBA Games because of the quality of the athletes and the non-exclusive treatment of their flag bearers.
We are very happy to be part of this event. We are not having any events at the moment. We are happy to be able to participate in an event that is friendly to Venezuela. We enjoy competing with good athletes.
After an interruption of 12 years, the ALBA Games are once again bringing the spirit of fraternity between peoples beyond their competition on the field.
These games give the member countries the opportunity to come together in sport, in friendship, in cooperation, because it is always good to come together and help others in different areas. I know that ALBA is an association of the different governments of the countries, but an event like the sports event, sports is something that brings many people together. Many people love sports. We are very happy to receive the community of ALBA. The ALBA is spiritual and it brings together nations, brotherhood, first and foremost, and give the best of what we have, and that people, in addition to feel good, help us to grow. We are united people, we are one America.
Many of the athletes who participated in these games are already thinking about their next competitions. Many others will compete in the Central American Games in El Salvador in June and in the Pan American Games in Chile in October.
Leonel Retamal, TeleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
And this Saturday, the closing ceremony of the 5th ALBA 2023 Sports Games will take place. With 9 days of competition, the sports events held in Venezuelan lines is just a few moments away from coming to an end. The Jose Vera Casta Sport Hall at the United Nations Park in Caracas is preparing to host the closing ceremony of this great sporting event, in addition to bid farewell to the 11 participating delegations after their hard work in these games. The ceremony is set to start at 5 p.m. local time. Let's review very quickly the medal standings so far, as Venezuela leads this 5th edition of the ALBA Games with a total of 694 medals, 244 gold, 241 silver and 209 bronze. The Cuban delegation secured the second place with 68 gold, 59 silver and 51 bronze medals. Russia came in third place with 21 gold, 17 silver and 7 bronze medals. Nicaragua, Bolivia, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Antigua and Barbuda are the other nations that have won medals so far. The other two participating countries are Grenada and St. Lucia, which have not yet been able to reach the podium of the competition, in which more than 3,500 athletes from 11 nations participate in 33 sports. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.